Now here are the formulas to calculate the quartiles of a group data. For quartile 1, we have Q sub 1 is equal to L plus quantity n over 4 minus CFB times I all over F. For quartile 2, we have Q sub 2 is equal to L plus quantity n over 2 minus CFB times I all over F. And for quartile 3, we have Q sub 3 is equal to L plus quantity 3n over 4 minus CFB times I all over F. As you can see, they are almost alike, but they differ from the fraction inside the parentheses. We have n over 4, n over 2, and 3n over 4. Now, in this formula, L stands for the lower boundary of interval where quartile lies, and CFB is the cumulative frequency from below. I is the class size or the interval between each scores. N is the total number of observations or frequencies, and F is the frequency of the quartile class. Next, here are the formulas for the deciles and percentiles. For deciles, we have D sub k is equal to L plus quantity Kn over 10 minus CFB times I all over F. And for percentiles, we have P sub k is equal to L plus quantity Kn over 100 minus CFB times I all over F. Where again, L is the lower boundary, CFB is the cumulative frequency from below, I is the class size, F is the frequency of the class, and K is the kth decile or the kth percentile. Now let's have an example on how can we use the formulas in calculating the quartiles, deciles, and percentiles of a given group data. For example, we have this given group data, and our first step is to find the total number of frequency. Now, how can we do that? We can just add up all of the numbers in the frequency f. So our n is equal to 3 plus 9 plus 8 plus 5 plus 2, that is equal to 27. Now, as you can see, we have a group data. What does a frequency mean? For example, we have 10 to 14, we have the frequency 2. And these are the test scores of 27 grade 10 students in math. It means that 2 students get a score between 10 to 14. And you have to take note that each group of score must have the same interval. Now, how can we get or how can we fill in the column for the cumulative frequency or CF? We will start with the frequency of the lowest scores. As you can see, our lowest scores are 10 to 14, and the frequency is equal to 2. Our first step is to copy the frequency of the lowest scores, which is 2. Now, how can we fill in the next row? We're going to add 2 and 5, or the next frequency. So our next CF is equal to 7. That is 2 plus 5. Then repeat the process. We have 7 plus 8, that is equal to 15. Then 15 plus 9, that is equal to 24. And 24 plus 3, that is equal to 27. Now, the last CF or the last cumulative frequency must be equal to the total number of frequencies. So that is how you fill in the column for the cumulative frequency or CF. Now let's move on to calculating the quartiles, deciles, and percentile. Now, how can we use the formula for first quartile in calculating the first quartile of the given group data? Our first step is to get the fraction inside the parentheses, or in this case, we have n over 4. Again, our n is equal to 27. Over 4, our n over 4 is equal to 6.75. Now, what's our next step? We have to get our table back. And what are we going to do with 6.75? We are going to locate it in our cumulative frequency. Now 6.75 is in between 2 and 7. Now what are we going to do with that? Now that we have located our cumulative frequency, we can now locate our quartile 1 class, the one above our n over 4, which is 15 to 19. Now that is our quartile 1 class. We can now get our values. We can now locate our L. L is the lower boundary, so we get the lower limit, which in this case, in our quartile 1 class, we have 15, or the lower score. 15, and then we're going to subtract 0.5 to get the lower boundary. So our L, or lower boundary, is equal to 14.5. Next, we can locate our CFB, or the cumulative frequency from below. From the word itself, from below. If the CF, or cumulative frequency of our quartile 1 class, is 7, we can get the one below it, which is 2. So that is our CFB, the cumulative frequency from below. Next one, we can now locate our I, or the interval, or the class size. How are we going to do that? We're just going to count the interval between each scores. Since we have 15 to 19, we can count 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Now our interval is 5. The last one, we have the F, or the frequency of our quartile 1 class. And as you can see, it is 5. So those are the values in our formula. Now we can calculate our first quartile. Now that we have all of the values in our formula, we can now plug in the values in our given formula. Since we have Q sub 1 is equal to L plus quantity n over 4 minus CFB times I all over F, let's just plug in all the values. So we have Q sub 1 is equal to L is 14.5 plus quantity n over 4 is 6.75 minus CFB is equal to 2 times I is equal to 5 all over 5, that is F. Next, we have quartile 1 is equal to 14.5 plus evaluate 6.75 minus 2, that is 4.75 times 5 divided by 5. Next, we have quartile 1, or Q sub 1 is equal to 14.5 plus 4.75 times 5 divided by 5 is equal to 4.75 plus 14.5, our Q sub 1 is equal to 19.25. Therefore, 25% of the class got a score below 19.25 and 75% of them got a score above 19.25. So that is our quartile 1 for the given group data. Next, let's calculate the second quartile. Again, we're going to use the formula for second quartile, which is Q sub 2 is equal to L plus quantity n over 2 minus CFB times I all over F. Same process and procedure, we're going to get the fraction inside our parentheses, which is in this case, we have n over 2 is equal to, again, our n is 27 divided by 2, n over 2 is equal to 13.5. Again, let's get our table back and locate 13.5 in our cumulative frequency. Now, 13.5 is in between 7 and 15. Again, we're going to get the class above it. That will be our Q sub 2 class. 20 to 24. Now, we can locate our values in our formula. For L, we have that is 20, that is the lowest score for that class. 20, again, minus 0.5 is equal to 19.5. That is our lower boundary. The next one, we have the CFB, or again, the cumulative frequency from below. Since our CF is 15, and the one below it is 7, that is our CFB. CFB is equal to 7. The next one, we have the interval or class size. Again, we still have the same given, so I is equal to 5. And the frequency of the quartile 2 class is, obviously, that is 8. The frequency of our quartile 2 class. Again, we can now proceed to our formula. We have Q sub 2 is equal to L plus quantity N over 2 minus CFB times I all over F. Again, L is 19.5 plus N over 2 is 13.5 minus CFB, that is 7, times again the class size is 5 all over the frequency 8. And Q sub 2 again is equal to 19.5 plus 13.5 minus 7, that is 6.5 times 5 all over 8. Q sub 2 is equal to 19.5 plus 6.5 times 5, that is 32.5, divided by 8, that is 4.06, plus 19.5, our Q sub 2 is equal to 23.56. Therefore, 50% of the class got a score lower than 23.56, and 50% of them got a score higher than that. So that is all for second quartile. The next one, we also have to get the third quartile of the given data. Again, the formula for the third quartile is Q sub 3 is equal to L plus quantity 3n over 4 minus CFB times I all over F. Again, our first step is to get the fraction in our parentheses, which is in this case, we have 3n over 4. Again, our n is equal to 27. So we have 3 times 27 over 4, that is 81 over 4, or 3n over 4 is equal to 20.25. Again, same process and procedure. Let's get our table back and locate 20.25 in our CF column. Now, 20.25 is in between 15 and 24. Again, our quartile 3 class is the class above our 3n over 4, which is 25 to 29. Now we can locate our L, or the lower boundary is equal to the lowest score of the class, which is 25, minus 0.5. Our lower boundary is 24.5. The next one, we have our CFB, or again the cumulative frequency from below. The CF below 24 is equal to 15. That is our CFB. The next one, we have again I, or the class size. Since we still have the same given, we still have the same class size, which is equal to 5. And the frequency of our quartile 3 class is equal to 9. Again, let's plug in the values in our given formula. We have Q sub 3 is equal to L is 24.5 plus 3n over 4 is 20.25 minus CFB is 15 times I is equal to 5 all over F is equal to 9. Again, evaluate. We have Q sub 3 is equal to 24.5 plus 20.25 minus 15, that is 5.25 times 5 over 9, that is 24.5 plus 5.25 times 5 is 26.25 divided by 9, that is 2.92, plus 24.5, our Q sub 3 is equal to 27.42. Therefore, 75% of the class got a score below 27.42, and 25% of them got a score higher than 27.42. So that is for the third quartile of our given group data. The next one, we also have to get our 8th decile. Therefore, K is equal to 8. So we have the formula D sub 8 is equal to L plus quantity 8 8n over 10 minus CFB times I all over F. Now for decile, our first step is the same. We have to get the fraction inside our parentheses, or in this case, we have 8n over 10. Again, our n is equal to 27, so we have 8 times 27 over 10, that is equal to 216 over 10. So 8n over 10 is equal to 21.6. Again, our next step is still the same. We have to get our table back and locate 21.6 in our CF column. That is in between still 15 and 24. So our decile 8 class is again 25 to 29, the one above our 8n over 10. So our lower boundary, or L, is equal to 25 minus 0.5, that is equal to 24.5. Next one, we have our CFB, or the cumulative frequency from below, the one below our decile 8 class, that is equal to 15. Now our I is still the same since we have the same group of data. I is equal to 5, or the interval. And F, or the frequency of our decile 8 class, is equal to 9. We can now plug in the values in our given formula. We have d sub 8 is equal to L, or the lower boundary, is equal to 24.5 plus 8n over 10 is 21.6 minus CFB is equal to 15, I, or class size, is equal to 5, all over F is equal to 9. Again, we have d sub 8 is equal to 24.5 plus 21.6 minus 15, that is 6.6, times 5 all over 9. 6.6 times 5, that is equal to 33, divided by 9, that is equal to 3.67, plus 24.5, our d sub 8, or the 8th decile, is equal to 28.17. Therefore, 80% of the class got a score below 28.17, and 20% of them got a score above 28.17. So that is all for the 8th decile. Lastly, we are asked to get the 35th percentile. Again, k is equal to 35, so we are going to get p sub 35 is equal to L plus, again, k is equal to 35, so we have 35 times n all over 100 minus CFB times I all over F. For percentile, we have the same process and procedure. Our first step is to get the fraction inside our parentheses, or in this case, we have 35n over 100. Again, our n is equal to 27, so we have 35 times 27 over 100. So 35n over 100 is equal to 9.45. Again, we have the same second step. We have to get our table back and locate 9.45 in our CF column. That is in between 15 and 7. Again, the one above is our percentile 35 class, or that is 20 to 24. So our L, or lower boundary, is equal to the lowest score in the class, which is 20 minus 0.5. Our L is equal to 19.5. Our CFB is again the cumulative frequency from below, or 7. And I, still the same, we have 5. And for the frequency of the P sub 35 class, that is equal to 8. We can now plug in the values to our given formula. Again, we have P sub 35 is equal to L is equal to 19.5 plus 35n over 100 is equal to 9.45 minus CFB is 7 times 5 all over F is equal to 8. So we have P sub 35 is equal to 19.5 plus 9.45 minus 7, that is 2.45, times 5 over 8. 2.45 times 5 is equal to 12.25. Divided by 8, that is 1.53. Plus 19.5 piece of 35 is equal to 21.03. Therefore, 35% of the class got a score lower than 21.03, and 65% of the class got a score higher than 21.03. So that is all for the measures of position of group data. Thank you for watching.